We think it's important to give you some insight regarding the student workflow as they progress through this lesson set. Like we've mentioned in previous tutorials, we have 4 different steps to the learning trajectory. To start this, I'm just going to log in as a student. And here on the home page are all the books. So the easiest way for the student to access their lesson would just be to click into this page. For example, if they're on lesson 5, they just click there and they go straight to the lesson.
Sten likes
On
red.
Asset 2 is the pages in the book. Now there's 5 pages in every lesson of the Runway series. So we recommend that this be where the students start with the book work. If you have a book, there's going to be 10 of these lessons in the book. But if you don't have a book, you can simply print the pages from here on a lesson-by-lesson basis. In a classroom setting, we recommend that the book be the first place to start. There's another tool down here for Classroom. It's this listening tool. Notice if you click this, it just opens up a new window. And here is an opportunity for the teacher to direct the class in pronunciation and memorization of the words, the vocabulary that's associated with this lesson. So those are the 2 basic classroom teaching tools. Now at this point, the teacher could continue to just go through these exercise questions, play the game together in front of the class, or otherwise to use the assets in the platform as a in-class orientation and repetition for the students. But at some point, the student is going to want to complete this lesson in their own MindPocket account, in which case their scores and their voice recordings will be saved for future reference. So let's talk about the elements of self-study that we've included in here.
Clara likes
So Asset
green.
1 is the game, and this is likely where the students are going to want to start. Once the game is done, it's going to score, and the score will appear up here in this score points corner. Next, after the game, it would be logical to do these exercise questions over here. There are 10 questions here. There are different question forms, fill in the blanks, multiple choice, and matching. So finish those 10 questions. Down here at the bottom, there's a Submit Answers button. And once you submit this, these points will also cumulatively score up in the points area up here. So far, we've done the book, Asset 2, the game, Asset 1, and we've also done these exercise questions over here. The next area to look at for the student is down here, Practice Talking. The way this works, it works together with the sound recordings over on the right side, because we would practice here first. Now you'll notice when you click this green button that a little red dot appears up in the page title tab up at the top here. Now that red dot means that your microphone is working, so it's time to say the word. And this section has a little bit of AI involved, because it's going to analyze the student's words and their accent, and if the computer can recognize the word, it'll give a response and it'll automatically check the box. So the student knows that they're good to go ahead and record this word now. And now that this word is checked and they passed the talking practice, they can come over here to this area and the sound and click this sample sound. Once they've heard the sample sound, they can click the record, and then the same thing happens with that blue dot at the top. Then they click this as the stop button, and a little bar will appear that asks them if they want to save that, and they just say yes, and it'll save it to the database. And so this will be saved for reference later, review by teachers or parents or students. They can go to their statistics page and review these recordings along with their lesson scores. Now the final element on the language side is going to be this test up here. So if you click this exam button, it takes you to a bit of a test. The student has to get 8 of these correct in a row. If they miss one, they have to start at 8 again. And then this also will score and save for later reference. So once the test is complete, we return back to the main lesson. And in the middle of the page, there's this black divider, which separates the language part of the lesson from the academic part of the lesson down below. We're going to give a language prep lesson before we actually get into the academics. So at this point, we just click this yellow button at the bottom, and it will take us to the Education City pre-lesson. Now this looks very familiar, doesn't it, with the previous lesson. So the students are going to have no problem accommodating this. they've already been oriented to the way the lesson works. The content, however, is preparatory to the academics. So here, Asset 2 is another PDF, and this is, again, a printable form, and it just orients the students to the language that they will be exposed to in the Education City lesson. All right, so you have the same classroom tools here. You have a listening tool. You have the same practice talking and record your voice. And again, the scores from this lesson are going to show up in your MyPocket student statistics as well. Just as with the language lesson, this academic pre-lesson also has a test. And it's accessed in the same way, and it functions exactly as it did in the language part of the lesson. So once this is done, then we just move over into the Education City itself. Now this Education City lesson has 3 different assets to it. It has a Learn Screen. Learn Screens are for classroom teaching, where the teacher stands in front of the class and uses the Learn Screen to orient the students to the lesson material. The Education City activity, this is where the students will actually do a scored activity. So they go in and they do the activity. The activity actually saves a score, and that score is available for future reference by teachers and students and parents. And finally, there's this Education Activity Sheet, which is another printable PDF that's useful in the classroom. Let's just go to the Education City activity for a minute, and we'll explore the student experience there. This unit is named Camping Stories. There's often an introduction that we can skip, and here is the actual activity itself. Now, this is a reading unit. However, because it's for very young children, it's going to have these play buttons here, so the student can listen to the text as they read along. Then once the book is finished, we close it with this X here, and we get into the questions. And you can see again how both the text and the art coincides with the prep lesson from MindPocket. There are a couple of things I'd like to point out here, just as far as information display. You notice up in this top right corner, the student is given 10 minutes to complete this lesson. And you notice there are 6 questions in this lesson. And there are other supports and helps here on this page that the student can use. Now if we go back to MindPocket, we'll just look at this other asset here. This is the Education City activity sheet. And again, it's linked directly in MindPocket. And here again is just a very useful reinforcement of the academic lesson. Again, this might be another classroom item that happens in the class, but once the student's finished, they've completed this lesson and they would start on lesson 6. That's the entire flow of the student experience through all the lessons. And I think we've accomplished what we need to in this video, so thank you for watching.